It is snowing right now. I went out to the dollar store to get a couple of things that I needed because it's not snowing too bad yet. It's supposed to be about 3 to 5 inches today, so not terrible. And so here I am. I had everything I wanted except for there's these like mug cake things that I wanted to get because they're really good. I ended up getting these instead. It's a snowy day and it's my day off and I just wanted some sweets and I want to lay down and read. So that was the vibe for this. I also got some sour candy. They also had some books. So I picked up The Misfortune of Marion Palm and The 3-Button Trick. This one is some short stories and this one is a novel. Just some extra things to pile on my shelf, you know? So for this recently read and currently reading, I have 7 books to talk about. The first one that I have to talk about is In the Dream House, which I read last month in January. And In the Dream House is a memoir about a woman and her relationship with another woman. It was abusive and damaging, and it was interesting to hear that perspective. It's something that she said that a lot of people keep hidden. Nobody really wants to talk about the fact that a same-sex relationship can be abusive, especially a female-female relationship, because everyone assumes that they are dainty and that neither of them would be abusive. So it was super interesting to read about, and also it was beautiful. She played a lot with structure within the writing, so that was fun. It was overall really enjoyable. It just like, it didn't feel complete to me, which as a memoir, that's usually the case because like your life is still going on. But I feel like I've read a couple of memoirs where they felt complete at the end, because even though your life isn't complete, that chapter of your life is complete. But I did appreciate the story and I thought that the structural concepts were really interesting and it was good. I gave it 3.5 stars. The next book was The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin, and this one was interesting and I thought that I would like it more than I did. Here's the full story about me reading this book. I started this book last year on my Kindle. I got like 40% in and then I just stopped reading it. And the issue was I kept reading it so slow. And that's very typical with me with fantasy books. I just have to go super slow because I just cannot connect the concepts to my brain. If it's not based in reality, I have a really difficult time reading it. But the difference with The City We Became is it takes place in New York City, which is amazing because then I felt like I could connect to it. So I kept thinking about the story. I wanted to go back to it. I decided to read it via audiobook because that way I wouldn't have to read through the entire thing again. And the story still felt familiar, which was really nice. The things that I really liked about this book is I really liked the characterization of all of the boroughs. I thought that it was really interesting. I loved all of the characters. I thought that they were their own people and I appreciated it. The general theme of gentrification was so like pounded in, and I felt like maybe it could have been more impactful if it wasn't so in my face. Clearly, it's a major issue in New York City as well as all other major cities, and that's what we were trying to get out of this story. But it said gentrification so much, and I just feel like it was so obvious, you know? I don't know. And then towards the end, I didn't feel like the battle scene mattered anymore. We were working so hard to get to this battle scene, and then by the end of it, I just felt like it was nothing. I don't know. I really appreciated the build-up, and then I felt disappointed at the end. But then I liked the actual ending after the battle scene. So I don't know. I also gave this one 3.5 stars. It was really interesting and I do still recommend it. This is also coming from somebody that doesn't usually read fantasy, so if you usually read fantasy, I know that a lot of people that generally read fantasy enjoyed this more. So the next one was City of Girls, which I gave 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. This one was by Elizabeth Gilbert, and I hadn't read anything by Elizabeth Gilbert in the past. I just knew that this book was compared to The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, and so I was all in, and I was not disappointed. I really enjoyed the story. So basically this book starts out, this girl wants to know what this woman's past was with her father because her father had just passed away. So this woman is writing this letter to this girl and just basically telling her her entire life story, starting with the 1940s, I believe. And it's written basically as a memoir, so it is like a fake memoir sort of situation, and it was just so fun reliving her life, and I thought it was such an accurate representation of young adulthood, and I really, really appreciated it, and it felt so accurate even though it was dated. So loved that. I thought that a lot of the things that she mentioned in the letter, which read as a memoir, aren't things that people would normally write in a letter. Like, I felt like having that be the basis of the novel was odd, but the story in general was just so enjoyable for me. It talked a lot about female strength, womanhood, the mistakes that you make. I loved it. I really, really did. I gave it 4 stars. I know that this wasn't like a great description of the book, but if you're interested in fake memoirs and 1940s and the 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, it was a really, really good book. I read that as an ebook. The next one was Grown by Tiffany D. Jackson, and I love Tiffany D. Jackson's books so much. I think this one was 4.5 stars. It could easily be 5 stars too, but like, I'm trying to save the 5 stars for the ones that are just like absolute magic to me this year. So 4.5 stars. It's just like all of Tiffany D. Jackson's books have the same underlying themes, and they're all just so good. So if you love one, you're gonna love all of them. And it was so creepy and like so, like, it's just, these books are all so wild and so heartbreaking. This one is about a young singer, and this older singer who's like super famous takes her under his wing, and just really scary, terrible things ensue, and it's just a ride. And if you are down for that, please read it. So then next we have Before the Coffee Gets Cold, and this book was just like such mellow vibes. So if you want something that's just like relaxing, I would highly recommend it. It takes place in 4 different parts, and it all takes place in this one coffee shop. And I'm gonna let you know the rules because this coffee shop lets you travel back in time, but there are very, very specific rules, and these 4 parts kind of like interconnect with each other, and it was just like this very relaxing, beautiful, chill story. Okay, so the rules aren't complex, but they must be followed exactly. You can only time travel in 1 chair in the cafe, and you can't get out of that seat while traveling. That chair is normally occupied by a ghost, and only once a day, when she gets up to use the bathroom, can you sit there and travel. You can only meet someone in the past who has visited the cafe, and you need to finish your coffee and return to the present before the coffee gets cold. So, very specific, but it's fun. I really enjoyed it. If that sounds interesting to you at all, it's also based in Japan, read it. It was really just good vibes. I think I gave it 3.5 stars again. Everything here, like, I really enjoyed. It just wasn't like at that pinnacle amazingness, but all of these were really, really good books. The next one was The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers, and this is the first book in the Wayfarer series, which for some reason I did not think about the fact that it was a series when I started listening to it, and I don't even know what intrigued me enough to like start listening to it via audiobook. It wasn't the hype, because I feel like it was hyped a few years ago, and I don't even remember like recently hearing about it, but I must have heard somebody talk about it. I think I was just into the science fiction vibes. It's something that I haven't read in a while, but this takes place on the Wayfarer, and there's a bunch of different species that are on it. They do punches and like longer travels, and they just sort of like punch holes into space, and that's their job on the Wayfarer. And it basically just like talks about all these different characters who are different species, and just brings up so many relevant topics, and you get to really know and love all of these characters, and they're on an adventure the entire time, and it's just like this heartwarming, loving story. This is one where I had to go back a few times in the audiobook and just replay it just so I like understood everything, but it is soft science fiction. Like, it's something that anybody can enjoy, and if you just enjoy really good characters, I feel like anybody would really enjoy this book. And it's an adventure as well. It was really good. Right now I am listening to the second book in the series, and I'm loving it even more because it's really just based on like 2 of the characters, and it's very in-depth, and it is beautiful. I think that one was 4 stars. I don't know. All of these are just really good books. The last book that I have to talk about today is How the One-Armed Sister Sweeps Her House. And this book was a trip. Trigger warning for anybody that has lost a child in any capacity, whether it be a miscarriage or just lost a young child. This book truly just like goes all out and does not hold anything back as far as that subject goes. So just fair warning on that part. And I don't necessarily think that's a spoiler either, because that's like the first chapter of the book is where that stuff starts. But then it goes through that entire journey. This woman is pregnant with a child and her husband does robberies. And that's how they make their living. He also sells weed on the side. They're natives of the Caribbean, so they pretty much bank on the tourists in order to make money. Whether that be robberies or whether that be selling stuff on the beach, that's what he does. He is a very dark, scary man, but there's reasons why that is. We hear about his childhood and the mother's childhood, as well as a family friend's childhood, and there's a robbery that happens in the beginning. We hear about the wife of that robbery. It is a really character-driven story because the action that takes place, there's like not a lot of it. The stuff that happens in the present happens in a very short time span, so we go back a lot and hear a lot about the characters' backstory. So it's really mainly about the characters and not about what's happening. So if that's something that you're interested in, like a lot of character development, that's it. Like, it's insane. I think this was the author's debut, Sherry Jones. I would totally read her stuff again. It was just so interesting and crazy, and again, just like a trip. The audiobook was really good. I would highly recommend it. So now the books that I am currently reading, like I said earlier, I'm listening to the second book in the Wayfarers series, which I believe is A Closed and Common Orbit. It's really good so far. It's about two of the characters that pop up in the initial book, and it's just all about them and their life before this, and it is good. I'm liking it better than the first one. It is that good. I also have an ebook that I'm going through. I'm trying to have an audiobook on hand, a physical and an ebook. So the audiobook is A Closed and Common Orbit. The ebook that I'm currently listening to is The Tourist Attraction, which is a contemporary romance series set in Alaska, which sounds really interesting in itself. Right now it's very cheesy. It's enjoyable. It's just like super cheesy. I'm only like 12% of the way into it, but it is due in like 5 days, so I'm either going to finish reading it or not finish reading it. I have not decided yet. The physical book that I'm reading is Infinite Country by Patricia Engel, which was the book that I picked for Book of the Month. I will leave my information for Book of the Month down below if you're interested, as well as the information for the Libby app, which is where I read all of my audiobooks. But Infinite Country is about a family that came from Colombia and went over to America, but then the dad got deported and now they are split, and just the family dynamic as the years go on. And it's just like so sad, and it's also just like this happens to so many people, and it's sad and beautiful so far. Truly beautiful. The writing is exquisite. I only have about 70 pages left of that, so hopefully I can get through that today. And that's it. Tell me what you guys are reading. Tell me how you're doing with the weather. How is the weather by you? I know the poor Texans are struggling right now. We've been getting snow like every week, but we're more well equipped for it, I think, in New York, so very sad what's going on over there. I hope that you guys are doing okay, and I hope you have a great day and a great week, and I will see you soon. Goodbye.